Hello, this is Tony. Thank you for finding my YouTube page. Let me teach your Sunday school class on the last Sunday of the month. All you have to do is sit back, push play, and pause. I teach right out of the Lifeway Explore the Bible lesson plan. Occasionally, I will add other related content. Subscribe to my page. Occasionally, I fill in on other Sundays too. Subscribe and feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. The entire Bible is one grand narrative. It begins with creation. Next, it recounts the fall when sin entered the human race through Adam and Eve. This is followed by the covenant God made with Abraham, promising he would use Abraham and his descendants to bless the nations, anticipating the coming of the Messiah. Later, God made a covenant with David, promising the Messiah would be his descendant. Finally, beginning in Matthew, the New Testament indicates Jesus is the long-anticipated Messiah. Has anyone ever broken a promise made to you? How did you react? Pause the video for class discussion. Psalm 132 is one of the 15 Song of Ascents in Psalms 120 through 134. The law required that every Israelite male go to Jerusalem for 3 annual feasts: the Festival of Unleavened Bread, the Festival of Weeks, and the Festival of Shelters. The Psalms of Ascents apparently were grouped together with these worshipers in mind as they approach Jerusalem. These pilgrims sang the songs of ascents in anticipation in preparation for these worship celebrations. Though Psalm 132 is one of the songs of ascents, it has some characteristics that make it stand out from the rest. First, it is much longer than the other songs of ascents. It's 18. Verses make it double the length of the next longest psalm in the collection, Psalm 122. Second, its length suggests that its subject matter was a primary focus for the pilgrims as they made their journey to Jerusalem. Third, Psalms 132 is classified as a royal psalm. Royal psalms are concerned with the earthly king of Israel. They were used to celebrate the king's rule and sometimes include a message from God to the king. In some instances, the psalms were made to intercede on behalf of the king. Furthermore, some royal psalms convey messianic expectations. Psalms 132 is composed of 2 parts. Verses 1 through 10 contain a prayer that refers to the oath David made to the Lord. It recalls how David brought the Ark of the Covenant in a glorious processional to Jerusalem as he and the people celebrated and worshiped the Lord. The psalmist requested that the Lord honor David for what he had done. The second half of the psalm recalls the covenant the Lord made with David in 2 Samuel verse 7. The Lord promised that he would establish David's dynasty with a descendant of David sitting on the throne for eternity. God's covenant with David had profound implications, connecting Israel's present situation to both its roots and God's purposes for it in the future as it anticipated the coming Messiah. Before we start reading Psalms 132, let's listen to a short video of Psalms 132 in song. Though the words are a little different, follow along in your book with the song.
To the mighty God of Jacob, surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, nor go up into my bed. I will not give sleep to mine eyes, or slumber to my eyelids, until I find out a place for the Lord, an habitation for the mighty God of Jacob. of it Ephrathah. We've found it in the fields of the wood. We will go into his tabernacle. We will worship at his footstool. Arise, O Lord, into thy rest. Thou and the ark of thy strength, let thy priests be clothed with righteousness, and let thy saints shout for joy. For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed.
Psalm 132. Lord, remember David and all his afflictions, how he sware unto the Lord, and vowed unto the mighty God of Jacob. Surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, nor go up into my bed. I will not give sleep to mine eyes, or slumber to mine eyelids, until I find out a place for the Lord, an habitation for the mighty God of Jacob.
It is essential to understand what it means for the psalmist to ask the Lord to remember. The rest of the psalm is connected to this idea. Asking the Lord to remember means more than asking him to keep something in mind. Rather, it is asking God to act in light of what the psalmist was asking him to remember. In this instance, he began by asking God to act on behalf of David in light of all of the hardships he had endured. The psalmist may have been referring to the affliction David endured at the hands of his enemies, and how David remained faithful to the Lord through it all. Or, given the immediate context of the psalm, which gives attention to David's bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, this may have been a reference to the initial trouble involving Uzzah in the first attempt to do so. It is possible that the hardships here are a reference to the great pains David took and the commitment he made it to gather tons of gold and silver along with other materials for the building of the temple. Instead of gathering these riches for himself, as most kings in the ancient Near East did, David denied himself the large accumulations of luxury so that they could be used by his son Solomon to build a temple for the Lord. Any one these experiences, or even all of these experiences, may have been what the psalmist had in mind as he wrote these words. Verse 2 contains two lines that are parallel to one another and synonymous in meaning. David swore an oath to the Lord. While the actual wording in this oath is not recorded in 2 Samuel verse 7 or 1 Chronicles verse 17, this verse, along with verses 3 through 5, shed light on these passages by revealing more of what David actually said and did when he zealously communicated to Nathan the prophet his desire to build a temple for the Lord. The psalmist indicated that David made a vow to the Mighty One of Jacob. At the end of Jacob's life, as he blessed his 12 sons, he recognized that God had been faithful to him from the very beginning when he erected a stone marker indicating the place would be Bethel, meaning the house of God. Both Jacob, the namesake of the nation of Israel, and its anointed King David made oaths concerning God's house. Verses 3 and 4 provide the beginning words of the oath David made to the Lord, indicating his desire to build a house for the Lord. This would be a place for the Ark of the Covenant to reside. These verses particularly focus on David's resolve to do so, no matter what it might cost him. They emphasize David's willingness to do whatever he needed to do, including enduring self-denial and deprivation to keep his oath to the Lord. Verse 3 states that David bound himself to this oath. He was more committed to the building of the Lord's house than to enjoying the comfort of his own house and even his bed. He could not be comfortable in his own house while the Lord had no house. What's more, verse 4 indicates David was more concerned about fulfilling this vow to God than he was concerned about his own physical needs. The psalmist stated that David vowed he would not sleep or slumber until he had accomplished what he had vowed to do. David would not allow anything to distract or derail him. Every waking moment he was thoroughly focused on keeping this oath. After communicating his utmost commitment to keeping his vow, David indicated what he was vowing to do. He was determined to find the perfect place to build the temple in Jerusalem, a permanent dwelling for the Lord. This is reminiscent of God's manifest presence at the tabernacle with the Israelites when they wandered into the wilderness for 40 years. This would be the place where the mighty one of Jacob would manifest his presence with his people. The mighty one of Jacob, who had shown himself faithful to Israel from its beginning, would faithfully continue to provide for and protect his covenant people.
Lo, we heard of it at Ephratah. We found it in the fields of the wood. We will go into his tabernacles. We will worship at his footstool. Arise, O Lord, into thy rest, thou and the ark of thy strength. Let thy priests be clothed with righteousness, and let thy saints shout for joy. For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed.
The Ark of the Covenant was the gold-covered box or chest made of acacia wood that contained a gold jar with manna, Aaron's staff, and the tablets of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Once a year, the high priest would enter into the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle and sprinkle the blood of bulls and goats on top of the mercy seat at the top of the ark to make atonement for the sins of the people of Israel. This day was called the Day of Atonement. Also, it was from above the mercy seat that God spoke to Moses. Therefore, the ark was the symbol of God's presence with his covenant people. Somehow, the Israelites lost track of the ark and it needed to be located. 1 Samuel 4:6 records how the Philistines captured it and eventually returned it to Israel. After a tragic encounter where the Lord struck down 70 men at Beth Shemesh for looking inside the ark, it was taken to Jar, which is likely a shortened name for Kiriath Jearim, and kept in the house of Abinadab. Ephrathah is the area where David was originally from, and it was there. They received word of the ark's location. Verses 7-9 record the response of David and the people when they locate the ark. Verse 7 records how David exhorted the people to go with him to the Lord's dwelling place to worship. Since God spoke from above the ark to Moses, and God's throne is in heaven, as the ark rested on the earth, it was understood to be the place of God's footstool. Verse 8 moves forward in time to refer to the public celebration as the ark was brought into Jerusalem and placed in the tent David had made for it. The Lord is everywhere and did not need a resting place. However, the ark represented the presence of God with his people, and God had chosen Jerusalem, also called Zion, to be the place where he would manifest his presence to them. Verse 9 recalls how the priest and God's faithful people joined David with loud jubilation celebrating the ark's presence in Jerusalem. Therefore, based upon all that David had done to demonstrate his devotion to the Lord, the psalmist prayed that the Lord would not reject his covenant with David. This prayer anticipates the central concern of the remainder of the psalm. When and where do you find it easiest to worship God? How do you worship God beyond what you do at church on Sundays? Pause the video for discussion.
The Lord hath sworn in truth unto David, he will not turn from it. Of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. If thy children will keep my covenant and my testimony, that I shall teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore.
The first part of Psalm 132 recalled the oath David made to the Lord. Verses 11 through 18 recall an oath God made to David. Given God's character, the psalmist was sure God would keep his promise. God promised David that he would place one of David's offspring on the throne to rule Israel. This oath is recorded in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16, and in 2 Samuel 7, verse 16. God told David, "Your house and kingdom will endure before me forever, and your throne will be established forever." God also included stipulations with this promise. God's promise was sure. However, in order for David's offspring to remain on the throne, they needed to faithfully obey the statutes God gave in his covenant with Israel. The history books in the Bible, from 1 Kings to Nehemiah, along with several of the prophets, indicate many of the kings disobeyed God's word, and their rule came to terrible ends. However, the psalmist knew there was still hope.
For the Lord hath chosen Zion, he hath desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever, here will I dwell, for I have desired it.
There was still hope because the Lord had chosen Zion to be his home and resting place forever. The psalmist makes clear that the Lord's choosing Zion to be the place of his throne was the Lord's desire. David did not make this decision. The Lord did. Even though God used David, it was the Lord alone who chose it, established it, and accomplished it. How have you experienced God's faithfulness to his word? Pause the video for discussion.
There will I make the horn of David to bud. I have ordained a lamp for mine anointed.
Even though David's descendants failed as kings, there was still hope because God promised David's throne would be established forever. The Lord stated he will make a horn grow for David. Horn is often used in the Bible as a symbol of strength. The expression comes from the animal kingdom. It is used often to refer to powerful kings. Cutting off the horn meant to remove one's power. David called God the horn of my salvation, meaning the Lord was his strength. In Revelation chapter 5, verse 6, the Lamb has 7 horns, a symbol of perfect power. Here, the reference points to Christ. The psalmist was saying that a powerful king, the Messiah, would come from David. The first words of Matthew's gospel read, an account of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David. The Lord also stated he prepared a lamp. David's line was not extinguished. Instead, it would shine brightly from the Lord's anointed one, the Messiah. This brings to mind Jesus' declaration, I am the light of the world. Anyone who follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. God the Son. Christ is the eternal Son of God. Read John chapter 1, verses 1 through 14, and Romans chapter 1, verse 3 and 4.
His enemies will I clothe with shame, but upon himself shall his crown flourish.
While the Lord's priests were called to worship him, clothed in righteousness and salvation, the Messiah's enemies would be defeated, clothed in shame. The crown he wears represents the Messiah's power and rule. The word glorious indicates his power and rule would shine and flourish. This description is reminiscent of Gabriel's words to Mary. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever. In his kingdom will have no end. Why is it significant that all of Jesus' enemies be defeated? While preparing for this lesson and questions such as this, I can't help from thinking about the current war between Israel and Iran. Pause the video for discussion. Believers should be intentional in their worship of God. Believers can be encouraged because God is faithful to keep his promises. Believers can know that Jesus is the Messiah who delivers us from sin.